Mistress claims pregnancy, but when the billionaire's wife files for divorce, he begs on his knees. Miranda Rutherford believed she was living out her greatest dream, married to the distinguished millionaire entrepreneur Travis Rutherford, sharing an elegant estate in Westchester and patiently anticipating the next chapter of their life together. But everything changes one blisteringly hot afternoon when rumors swirl that Travis has been entangled with an alluring woman named Elena Montgomery, who now claims to be pregnant with his child. Miranda's once perfect world begins to fracture under the weight of her husband's possible betrayal, driving her to a shocking decision. She files for divorce. Desperate to preserve his marriage, Travis goes down on his knees to plead for forgiveness. Will that be enough? Miranda Rutherford grew up in the quiet countryside of Vermont, raised by a loving family of modest means. From her earliest memories, she embraced simple pleasures, baking pies with her mother, strolling along winding dirt roads with her father, and she never once imagined her adulthood would be spent in high society. Yet life's twists and turns led her to Manhattan, where she studied comparative literature at a prestigious university. During her final year, a serendipitous encounter took place at a charity gala supporting literacy programs for underprivileged youth. Travis Rutherford, descended from a middle-class background in upstate New York, was building a technology empire from scratch. Handsome, ambitious, and supremely confident, Travis charmed everyone he met, including Miranda. Amid the swirl of champagne flutes and elegant gowns, a quiet spark ignited between them. They discovered a shared love for learning and philanthropic endeavors, forging a bond that transcended the usual superficial Manhattan dating scene. In a whirlwind, Travis proposed on a crisp autumn day beneath the brilliant foliage of Central Park. Miranda accepted through tears of joy, hardly believing her good fortune. Soon after, they wed in a tasteful ceremony, drawing only close friends and family. Yet, their union soon caught the city's attention. Tech mogul marries rising philanthropist, read a Society column headline. To escape the relentless energy of Manhattan, they purchased an estate in Westchester County, a sprawling property with manicured lawns, a classical fountain, and a stone mansion reminiscent of centuries-old English estates. Friends joked it was like living in a romance novel. Inside that luxurious refuge, Miranda filled her days with writing philanthropic grants, curating antique furniture, and planning the future with Travis. She also embraced her new role as hostess for charity events, where high-profile investors and dignitaries regularly mingled in candlelit halls. If anyone asked, she would say she was content, ecstatically so. Unbeknownst to Miranda, this semblance of perfection was more fragile than it appeared. While Travis showered her with expensive jewelry and spontaneous weekend getaways to the Hamptons, Miranda occasionally sensed an undercurrent of tension in his spirit. Always the risk-taker, Travis had grown addicted to the high-stakes environment of big business, forging deals over late-night dinners, forging alliances with unscrupulous but powerful investors, and chasing expansions beyond the local horizon. But still, any fleeting worries she had quickly dissipated whenever Travis returned home, enthralling her with stories of how these deals would fund new philanthropic projects. He radiated a confidence that everything was under control, and she believed him without hesitation until that pivotal summer day, when a name she had never heard before, Elena Montgomery, began echoing in hushed circles. In the vibrant hush of Westchester's rolling hills, Miranda's life seemed like a dreamy snapshot of marital bliss. Yet, hidden in the corners, the soft cracks of betrayal were starting to form. When they inevitably widened, the entire structure of her marriage threatened to come crashing down. Summer in Westchester meant languid afternoons beneath lush trees, and gentle breezes carrying the scent of roses across the Rutherford estate. As the days grew warmer, so did the murmurs that something was amiss in Miranda's world. Initially, the gossip trickled in discreetly casual mentions at charity luncheons or cryptic remarks from acquaintances. One afternoon, Miranda visited her friend Celeste Harrington, a well-connected socialite known for unveiling secrets cloaked under polite smiles. Celeste's house was an opulent Tudor-style mansion, dotted with vintage furniture that matched her refined yet slightly ostentatious taste. While sipping lavender-infused tea in Celeste's sunroom, the conversation took a startling turn. "I've been hearing the name Elena Montgomery around the circuit," Celeste said, swirling her teacup. "Apparently she's this captivating brunette from Los Angeles. Word is she's quite close to Travis, some kind of marketing consultant, or so it's rumored. Have you met her?" Miranda's heart skipped a beat. "No," she replied, maintaining a neutral expression. "Travis never mentioned her." Celeste arched a perfectly sculpted eyebrow. "That is interesting. She's certainly not shy about mentioning his name. I heard from a friend of a friend that she's been photographed near Rutherford Enterprises. Perhaps it's a purely professional relationship, darling. But keep your eyes open." A disquieting tension gripped Miranda. She tried to reassure herself that Travis had many colleagues. He constantly partnered with marketing experts to expand his business. There was no reason to assume anything was wrong, but Celeste's knowing tone and the slight pity in her gaze struck Miranda to the core. That evening, Travis returned from the city later than usual, looking drained. Miranda carefully prodded him about new hires or recent expansions. He offered perfunctory answers. When she directly asked whether he knew someone named Elena Montgomery, Travis's expression briefly flickered with something like alarm before he painted over it with a smooth, nonchalant mask. "Oh, Elena," he said, lowering his eyes. "She's a marketing consultant, yes. I might have brought her on board for a new campaign." Barely know her beyond that, Miranda wanted to believe him. She forced a cheery smile and changed the subject, pushing away her gnawing doubts. Yet that night, as they lay in bed under the glow of a dim lamp, Travis seemed unusually restless, checking his phone multiple times. Days turned into weeks, and the rumors persisted. Elena Montgomery's name popped up in Manhattan tabloids, linking her to a mysterious millionaire. The pieces started to fit uncomfortably. An intangible wedge formed between Miranda and Travis. Small arguments flared over trivial matters, tension simmering beneath polite interactions. Every moment they were apart, Miranda fought off images of her husband in clandestine rendezvous with a mysterious woman. Uncertain how to handle the swirl of suspicion, Miranda clung to the life she had built. Yet deep inside, she sensed an approaching storm. She had no way of knowing how devastating it would be, or that Elena Montgomery's next move would shatter every illusion. Miranda still clung to. A morning sun, warm but not yet scorching, flooded through the tall windows of the Rutherford estate. Miranda was in her study, meticulously drafting a grant proposal for an urban literacy program. Her phone, resting on a mahogany desk, glowed with an incoming message from Celeste. "I heard something big is about to go down. Are you okay?" Before she could reply, the doorbell reverberated through the mansion. It was an unusual time for visitors. The staff typically expected deliveries around midday, not so early. Miranda went to the foyer, half expecting a courier or perhaps one of Travis's associates. She opened the door to see a woman who perfectly matched the room's description. Tall, brunette, elegant in a white blazer and matching slacks. She offered a small, gracious smile, though her dark eyes shone with a peculiar glint. "Miranda Rutherford?" she asked politely, though it seemed more a statement than a question. "I am," Miranda replied cautiously, heart pounding. "May I help you?" The woman held out a manicured hand. "I'm Elena Montgomery. I believe we share an acquaintance in your husband, Travis. Miranda's breath caught in her throat. She stared at Elena, struggling to maintain composure. I see, she finally said, stepping aside to let the woman in. I wasn't aware you were coming. Elena glided into the foyer, gaze flitting around the pristine interior. She seemed to be sizing it up, as if calculating its worth. I'm sorry for arriving unannounced, she said, voice laced with a practiced innocence. But I need to speak with you about a matter of some urgency. She paused, eyes meeting Miranda's. It's best if we discuss this privately. Miranda led her to a small sitting room off the main hallway, gesturing for Elena to take a seat on a plush sofa. She perched on the edge of a wingback chair opposite. All right, she said, inhaling slowly to quell her anxiety. I'm listening. Elena's lips curved into a tight smile. I won't sugarcoat it. I've been seeing Travis, romantically. It's not something I intended to happen, believe me. I wasn't looking to hurt anyone. She let out a staged sigh, but things spiraled, and now I'm pregnant. Miranda felt the color drain from her face, the blood roaring in her ears. She gripped the arms of the chair to steady herself. Pregnant? She echoed weakly, her mind reeling in disbelief. She wanted to call Elena a liar, to demand she leave, but the woman's confident demeanor suggested she was thoroughly prepared for that reaction. Elena nodded, her expression morphing into feigned sympathy. I know this is a lot to take in, she murmured, but Travis has been well. He's been distant lately, and I suspect he hasn't told you about us because he's scared. Speechless, Miranda trembled with hurt and rage. She had suspected an affair, but a child? That revelation was a brutal betrayal. Elena studied her, a flicker of satisfaction surfacing behind her concerned facade. Miranda recognized in that moment that the woman's presence here wasn't merely to inform her. She had a purpose, and it boded ill for the Rutherford marriage. The late morning sun cast harsh light across the polished marble floors as Elena Montgomery left, her final words echoing in Miranda's mind. I don't want a war, but the child's future matters. I hope you and Travis can understand that. Miranda stood in the silent foyer, stunned. Rage, betrayal, and heartbreak warred in her chest. She wanted to scream, to cry, to gather evidence that Elena was lying, but deep down she sensed the woman's claim was too confidently delivered to be mere bluff. Already, the threads of her marriage felt as though they were unraveling under her feet. In the hours that followed, Miranda's mind spun in circles. She considered ignoring Elena's visit, but that was impossible. She briefly thought about calling Travis, demanding an explanation over the phone, but decided she deserved to confront him face to face. By the time the clock neared 5:00 p.m., she resolved to do just that. Travis walked in shortly after dusk, shoulders slumped from a grueling day, or perhaps from guilt. The grand foyer lights gleamed overhead as Miranda stepped forward. Her eyes, usually warm with greeting, brimmed with heartbreak. He froze. Miranda, you look what's wrong? He asked, setting his briefcase down. In a voice trembling with suppressed fury, she replied, Elena Montgomery visited me. His complexion visibly drained. He ran a hand through his hair as if scrambling for composure. Oh, God, I was going to tell you, but... Miranda let out a bitter laugh. You were going to tell me what? That you've been seeing her behind my back. That she's claiming she's pregnant with your child. Travis dropped his gaze to the marble floor. I'm sorry, he whispered. We had an affair for a few months. It began while we were launching that new marketing project. I didn't mean for it to happen. It just did, and I didn't know how to end it gracefully. He looked up, eyes pleading. I swear I never wanted to hurt you. Miranda's voice cracked. You've done more than hurt me. You've destroyed everything. A raw wave of pain surged through her. Her dream life, this mansion, their philanthropic plans, the family they once envisioned, felt like a facade built on quicksand. Is she really pregnant? He swallowed hard, face twisting with agony. She told me she is. I'm not even certain if it's mine. She said it is, and now she's threatening to go public if I don't support her financially. Miranda closed her eyes, tears slipping down her cheeks. She had half hoped Elena's pregnancy was a malicious lie, but hearing Travis confirm the possibility shattered her illusions. "And you were just going to keep lying to me?" she asked, voice hollow. He lunged forward, trying to grasp her hand. "No, I wanted to tell you so many times, but I was scared you'd leave me, that it would all unravel. I love you, Miranda. You have to believe me." She stepped back, out of his reach, trembling with both heartbreak and disgust. "I can't do this," she whispered, turning away. She trudged upstairs, each step heavier than the last, leaving Travis behind in the echoing foyer, tormented by guilt and the consequences of his actions. Morning found Miranda awake far earlier than usual, enveloped by the lingering darkness in the master bedroom. Sleep had been elusive, haunted by images of Travis with Elena. She longed to rid herself of the mansion's suffocating opulence, if only for a moment. Quietly, she grabbed her coat and slipped out of the house. The estate grounds, with their symmetrical hedges and immaculate lawn, looked surreal in the pre-dawn light. She walked briskly down the gravel driveway, reaching the iron gates that opened onto a winding Westchester road. For the first time in ages, she yearned for the plain roads of her Vermont childhood, a simpler life unburdened by betrayal. As her breath condensed in the crisp air, she mulled over her options. Divorce. The word loomed in her mind like a storm cloud. She had never pictured herself ending a marriage, let alone a high-profile union that so many admired. But how could she possibly continue living with a man who broke her trust so profoundly? Or endure the presence of a mistress child, a permanent reminder of Travis's unfaithfulness? Returning to the mansion, she found Travis waiting in the living room, eyes bloodshot. He looked as though he'd spent the night pacing. "Miranda," he began softly, "I'm sorry. I'll do anything to fix this. We can get therapy, or we can." She raised a hand to stop him. "I need to think," she said, voice taut. "Until I decide, let me have space, please." Travis opened his mouth, but no words emerged. At last, he nodded, retreating to the study. Miranda watched him go, a bittersweet pang in her heart. The man she still loved was the man who had torn her life apart. Determined to get clarity, she phoned an old friend from college, Dr. Jessica Pace, a compassionate counselor who specialized in marital crises. Jessica lived in upstate New York and had often offered a listening ear. After hearing Miranda's tearful summary, Jessica urged her to come for a session as soon as possible. "You need a safe space to explore your feelings," she said. Miranda agreed, scheduling an appointment for the following afternoon. Meanwhile, she let the household staff know she'd be away, ignoring their concerned glances. She packed a small overnight bag and drove north, her mind swirling with conflicting emotions. She wanted revenge, yet also ached to turn back the clock, to recapture the innocence that once defined her marriage. During her drive, she passed quiet lakes and rolling farmlands reminiscent of her youth. The natural beauty contrasted sharply with the emotional chaos inside her. She realized that Travis's scandal with Elena, plus a potential child, was only half the problem. The other half lay in her own heartbreak, her loss of trust, and her fundamental need for emotional security. Until she sorted through that, no external resolution, financial settlement, custody arrangement, or public apology would heal her battered heart. Miranda arrived at Dr. Jessica Pace's cozy private practice mid-afternoon. Jessica's office was located in a converted Victorian home with warm wooden floors and an interior that felt more like a living room than a clinical space. Soft music played in the background and sunlight streamed through lace curtains, creating a cocoon of calm far removed from the Rutherfords' opulent mansion. Jessica, a petite woman with kind brown eyes and an empathetic demeanor, welcomed Miranda with a long hug. They settled into armchairs facing each other, a box of tissues on a small table between them. "Tell me everything," Jessica prompted gently, and with that, Miranda unleashed the storm raging in her mind. She described the dreaded day Elena arrived, the heartbreak of hearing about the affair, the dagger twist of a possible pregnancy. The tears came in fits, her voice cracking as she laid bare her confusion and betrayal. When Miranda finished, Jessica handed her a tissue. "I'm so sorry," Jessica said softly. "What you're experiencing is raw trauma. You're not just dealing with a spouse's infidelity, there's a child involved, or at least the claim of one. It's overwhelming." Miranda nodded, dabbing at her cheeks. "Part of me wants to run away and never look back. Another part wonders if we can salvage anything. I still love him, Jess. But can love survive something like this?" Jessica sighed. "There's no simple answer. Rebuilding trust after betrayal can happen, but it requires an enormous amount of work, transparency, and genuine remorse from the unfaithful partner. And even then, not all marriages can recover. You have to figure out what you want." Miranda clutched the tissue in trembling fingers. "I don't want to be stuck in limbo, constantly doubting him. I also don't want a daily reminder of Elena if the child is truly Travis's. I can't imagine the heartbreak." Jessica leaned forward, her voice gentle but firm. "You need clarity on a few points, Miranda. First, is this child truly his? Second, if so, can you handle coexisting with that reality? And third, is Travis genuinely committed to change, or just desperate to keep you from walking away?" Miranda exhaled shakily. "He says he'll do anything. He begs for forgiveness. But I'm not sure if it's out of love or out of fear of losing his public image and me." Jessica offered a sympathetic smile. "Perhaps it's both. In high-profile relationships, reputation often entwines with genuine affection, but it doesn't mean his remorse is false. It's complicated." They spent over an hour dissecting the complexities, the potential child, the power dynamics in a wealthy marriage, the intrusive nature of gossip columns. By the session's end, Miranda felt both drained and oddly lighter, as though she'd shared an enormous burden. Jessica's parting advice was simple, yet profound. You don't have to decide now. Ask for accountability. Require paternity testing. If you choose to proceed, consider therapy together. And if you can't face it, that's okay too. Your well-being is paramount. Holding on to Jessica's words, Miranda left the office. She didn't have all the answers, but she at least had a plan to demand clarity from Travis and from Elena. It was time to see if the child was truly his, and what that might mean for the unraveling threads of her marriage. Miranda returned to the Rutherford estate just after sunset the following day, her mind still buzzing from Jessica Pace's advice. The mansion's grand facade stood silent, lights glowing in a handful of windows. A swirl of apprehension filled her as she parked in the circular driveway. She found Travis in the living room, perched on a sofa with a whiskey untouched beside him. He stood the moment she entered, relief and anxiety contorting his features. "Miranda," he breathed, stepping toward her. "You were gone so long. I was worried." She tightened her coat around herself, meeting his gaze. "We need to talk." They sat opposite each other, the coffee table between them feeling symbolic of the distance that had grown. Miranda took a steadying breath. "I visited a friend who's a counselor. She helped me think things through." He swallowed. "I'd do counseling with you. Anything. Just please, let me fix this." Miranda glanced at the swirling patterns in the Persian rug, then back at him. "First, we need a paternity test. If Elena's truly pregnant, and if the child is really yours, then we'll address that reality head on. No more secrets." Travis's jaw clenched, but he nodded. I've already told her we want proof. She's agreed to do a DNA test once the pregnancy reaches the stage where it's safe. She's also demanding financial support. Miranda's stomach twisted. Of course she is. And if the child is yours, you're obligated to provide for it. But that doesn't mean we're forced to let her do whatever she wants. She paused, letting her next words settle. If we even stay together. The color drained from his face. You mean you're considering divorce? Miranda's heart pounded. Yes, Travis. You lied to me. You betrayed me. And you left me to find out about your mistress's pregnancy from her own lips. Part of me can't imagine living under the same roof with you anymore. He leaned forward, voice cracking. I'll do anything to keep you. I regret everything with Elena. It was lust and stupidity. I never stopped loving you. I swear. Tears pricked at her eyes. She fought to steady her composure. I can't survive on your apologies alone. Actions matter. If you truly want a chance, you'll be transparent, show me your finances, your phone, everything. No more secrets, no more separate accounts or last-minute business trips. We go to therapy. We rebuild trust from zero if it's even possible. He clung to the hope in her last phrase, nodding fervently. Yes, anything, I promise. No more secrets. At that moment, the phone rang, shattering the tense quiet. Travis reached for it, then froze, noticing the caller ID. It's Elena, he muttered. Miranda nodded for him to answer. Silence fell as he murmured curt greetings. Then he paled, turning haunted eyes toward Miranda. She says she's bleeding. She's on her way to the hospital. She's afraid of losing the baby. Miranda's mind reeled. An unexpected surge of compassion flickered within her despite everything. She couldn't wish harm upon an unborn child. She stared at Travis, who looked distraught, phone still clutched in his hand. Their lives had just become even more complicated, and the next steps were uncertain. For better or worse, the paternity question might soon be the least of their worries. Miranda never imagined she'd find herself in a hospital waiting room, anxiously awaiting news of a possible mistress's pregnancy. Yet here she was, perched on a hard plastic chair next to a fidgeting Travis. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead, and the sharp scent of antiseptics hung in the air. After Elena's panicked call, Travis had insisted on driving to the hospital to check on her. Torn between the desire to stay far away and the knowledge she needed clarity, Miranda went along. Better to face this crisis head-on than to let suspicion fester further. Minutes stretched into an hour. Medical staff bustled around them, occasionally offering polite smiles but no updates. Miranda studied Travis's ashen face. He looked drained, grief-stricken, and she sensed his guilt gnawing at him. A pang of conflicting emotions seized her, sympathy for his obvious remorse, yet lingering anger for the heartbreak he'd inflicted. Finally, a nurse emerged, calling Travis's name. He and Miranda stood simultaneously. Miss Montgomery is stable, the nurse said, flipping through a chart. She experienced some bleeding, but it's subsiding. The baby appears to be fine for now, though we'll keep her overnight for observation. Miranda released a breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding. As much as she despised the situation, she couldn't celebrate a miscarriage. No child should suffer for the mistakes of adults. Travis clasped his hands together, relief flooding his features. They were ushered to Elena's private room, an antiseptic space with pale walls and a single bed. Elena lay propped against pillows, looking more vulnerable than usual. Her complexion was pale, eyes glassy with tears. She turned her head when they entered, gaze fixating on Travis, then flicking to Miranda. "You both came," Elena croaked, voice weak. I'm sorry for the scare. The doctor said the baby's stable." Miranda hovered by the door, uncertain whether to approach. Travis moved closer to Elena's bedside. "That's good news," he said softly. "We were worried." A wave of tangled emotions threatened to break Miranda's composure. She observed the tender, worried expression on Travis's face, once reserved only for her, and clenched her fists, recalling the betrayal. With effort, she forced a calm facade. "I'm relieved you and the baby are safe," she said, her words measured, "but we need confirmation. We want a paternity test as soon as it's medically advisable." Elena's eyes flickered, a mixture of resignation and annoyance. "I understand," she murmured. "I'll do it, but you'll see, there's no reason to doubt me. Travis is the father." Miranda's pulse hammered. "Then we'll handle it. But until we have proof, let's not jump to conclusions about anything else." Elena gave a weak nod, settling back on the pillows. A tense silence fell, laden with unsaid words. Eventually, Travis mustered a stiff farewell, promising to check in the next day. As Miranda and Travis left the hospital, the hush between them felt like a yawning chasm. On the drive home, they spoke little. Each was lost in private torment, Miranda grappling with the potential reality of raising or acknowledging her husband's child with another woman, Travis still wrestling with guilt. They pulled up to the Rutherford estate, under a moonlit sky, the mansion looming large, a silent reminder of the illusions they once called a perfect life. 2 days after the hospital incident, Miranda found herself in the mansion's expansive library. The regal shelves of leather-bound volumes usually brought her comfort, reminding her of quiet afternoons spent reading with Travis curled by her side. But now, every piece of this house seemed tainted by betrayal. She clutched her phone, scrolling through messages from friends, each asking if she was okay, noticing her absence from social events. The tabloids had been swirling rumors about Travis, but nothing concrete. Her heart panged, recalling how she once took pride in their stable union amidst high society's turbulence. But stability was gone now, replaced by a dizzying swirl of betrayal, a potential child, and a mistress brazenly stepping into her life. She exhaled shakily, picking up a business card from the desk. James Delgado, Esquire. He was a reputable divorce attorney, recommended by Celeste Harrington, who privately confided that she, too, had once needed legal counsel for a messy breakup. Her finger hovered over the phone's keypad. Could she truly take this step? The vow of till death do us part echoed in her mind, but so did the painful images of Elena claiming pregnancy, Travis kneeling in guilt. Ultimately, she reasoned that knowledge was power. Consulting a lawyer didn't necessarily mean she had to finalize a divorce. She needed clarity on her rights and how to protect herself if the paternity test confirmed Travis was the father. Resolute, she dialed Delgado's number. He answered in a courteous yet businesslike tone, and she explained her situation in broad strokes, no mention of Elena's name, just that an affair and possible out-of-wedlock pregnancy threatened her marriage. She could almost hear the empathy in Delgado's measured words. "Miss S. Rutherford, I understand this is painful. I'll walk you through your legal options. If you decide to file for divorce, you should know the financial and custodial implications in a high net worth situation." They arranged a meeting for the next day at his downtown office. After the call ended, Miranda felt a strange sense of calm, even as her heart hammered in her chest. She was taking charge of her own future, no longer passively awaiting the next blow. That evening, Travis returned home earlier than usual, wearing an anxious expression. He approached her in the lounge, attempting to share updates about Elena's condition. Apparently she was ordered to bed rest for the next week. Miranda listened in stony silence. When he mentioned the baby's upcoming ultrasound, she found her resolve hardening. This child, if truly his, would forever alter their marriage dynamic. "You should know I'm seeing a lawyer tomorrow," she said quietly. Travis's face fell. "You can't mean that. Miranda, please." She felt tears threaten but pushed them back. "I need to protect myself," she said, voice trembling. "And if the baby is yours, I need a clear path forward, whether it's in this marriage or not." Travis sank into a nearby chair, raking a hand through his hair. His shattered expression might once have softened her heart, but she had spent too many nights crying. The lines were drawn. The next day, she would learn precisely how to move forward, and Travis's pleas couldn't dissuade her now. Downtown Manhattan's skyline formed a sharp silhouette against the grey clouds as Miranda stepped out of her car, heart pounding. The elevator ride up to James Delgado's law firm felt interminable, the soft hum of the machinery intensifying her nerves. Yet, a calm resolve underpinned her anxiety. She was here to find clarity. Delgado's office was sleek and modern, perched on the 27th floor. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a dizzying view of the city below. He greeted her with a polite handshake, his demeanor exuding quiet confidence. Dressed in a tailored navy suit, Delgado led her to a conference room lined with framed accolades, articles praising his expertise in high-profile divorce cases, awards for legal service. "I'm sorry we're meeting under these circumstances," Delgado began, "but rest assured, my team and I will do our utmost to help you navigate this situation." Miranda explained the basics. She had discovered her husband's affair, the mistress's pregnancy claim, the uncertainty swirling around them. Delgado listened without interruption, taking succinct notes. Then he carefully laid out her options. "First," he said, leaning forward, "if you decide to file for divorce before the paternity test, you can cite adultery as grounds. However, it might be strategically advantageous to wait for the test results. If the child is indeed his, it influences potential settlements and any ongoing obligations." He paused, selecting words with precision. High net worth divorces can be complicated. There are shared assets, trust funds, possible businesses. The public aspect can also complicate negotiations. Miranda nodded numbly. She'd known it would be complex, but hearing the labyrinth of legalities spelled out turned her stomach. Delgado continued, "Should you proceed with the divorce, we can negotiate spousal support and property division. If Travis is the father, there might be child support obligations for that child. That complicates the financial picture." A swirl of fear and heartbreak coiled in her chest. "So basically, if the baby is his, we'll have to factor that into the settlement." Delgado offered a gentle nod. "Indeed, it's not your responsibility to fund his mistress's claims, but a portion of Travis's resources would likely be diverted for child support, which can reduce the household's net assets. We'd want to ensure your interests remain protected." Miranda's mind flickered with a painful realization. "Even if I stay with Travis, part of our fortune could go to support Elena's child. Would she ever find peace in that scenario?" She asked Delgado about confidentiality. She dreaded tabloids feasting on her personal tragedy. He assured her they could petition for sealed records and discreet negotiations if both parties cooperated. "If both parties cooperated," he emphasized. After nearly 2 hours of exhaustive discussion, Miranda rose from her seat, feeling both drained and oddly empowered. Delgado placed a neatly organized folder in her hands, containing details of potential next steps. "You don't have to decide right away, Mrs. Rutherford. Take your time. But if you do choose to file, we'll be prepared." She left the law firm, stepping into the windy Manhattan afternoon. The bustle of taxis and pedestrians underscored how the world marched on, indifferent to her heartbreak. Clutching the folder tightly, Miranda realized she stood at a crossroads: remain in a fractured marriage to see if trust could be salvaged, or take the leap into an uncertain future with divorce. Either path promised battles ahead, and she wondered if her heart had the fortitude to endure what lay ahead. 2 weeks later, the paternity test results arrived. Miranda had insisted on a procedure verifying the baby's DNA as early as possible. Elena was well enough to undergo a non-invasive prenatal test, and Travis, desperate to quell the growing tension, agreed immediately. The envelope sat on a side table in the Rutherford estate's living room, a stark piece of mail that might dictate their futures. Travis hovered beside Miranda, fear etched into his features. A hush spread through the room, broken only by the tick of an ornate grandfather clock. Miranda's hand trembled as she picked up the envelope. She hesitated, then tore it open in a single, shaky movement. The official letterhead from the testing facility prefaced a string of scientific terms. Culminating in the verdict, Travis Rutherford is confirmed to be the biological father with 99.9% probability. A stifling silence blanketed them. Miranda exhaled a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. She'd secretly hoped for a different outcome, that maybe Elena was a fraud, or that the child belonged to some other man. But now the truth lay unassailable. Travis ran a hand over his face, grief swelling in his eyes. "I'm so sorry," he whispered, voice choked. He attempted to place a hand on Miranda's shoulder, but she stepped away, cheeks hot with anger and heartbreak. "How could you do this to us?" she spat, tears threatening to break free. "Now there's an innocent child in the mix. I can't believe you were so careless." Travis swallowed, eyes misty. "I never meant Elena manipulated me. It was an affair, yes, but I was ending it. She insisted she needed me." He trailed off, shame coloring his expression. "I know there's no excuse." Miranda pressed her lips into a thin line. "This child is your responsibility now, whether we stay married or not. I can't stand by and watch you funnel our life into some hush-money scheme with Elena. She'll use this child to latch onto you forever." He raked his hair, despair emanating from him. "I want to do the right thing for the baby, but I also want to fix things with you. Please, Miranda, tell me how to make you stay." She let out a bitter laugh, tears slipping down her cheeks. "I don't think you can. I can't share my home with the constant reminder of your betrayal. It's not just me now. Imagine raising our future children with your mistress's child overshadowing our family." She paused, voice cracking. "I can't bear it, Travis." His face contorted with desperation, but he found no words to counter the stark truth in hers. Finally she turned, marching out of the living room with the test results still clutched in her hand. She left him standing amidst the marble columns and ornate decor, a wealthy man who had just discovered that money can't shield one from the ruinous consequences of infidelity. Upstairs, behind a locked bedroom door, Miranda let herself collapse into sobs. In her trembling hand was the business card for James Delgado. She stared at it through blurry eyes, realizing that the time had arrived. After all, she had promised to wait for the paternity test's outcome. Now that the results were undeniable, the path forward was heartbreakingly clear. It was a crisp morning when Miranda slipped into James Delgado's office once more, her expression set with grim determination. She wore a simple black dress, far from her usual elegant ensembles, as if embracing a symbolic mourning for her marriage. Delgado greeted her with respectful sympathy, then guided her to the same conference room they'd occupied previously. She handed him the paternity results. "It's confirmed," she murmured. "The child is his. I want to proceed with the divorce." Delgado offered a small nod. "Understood. We'll move forward. I've drafted the necessary paperwork citing adultery as grounds. Given Travis's high net worth, we'll also request a fair share of assets. Spousal support, especially considering the emotional distress you've endured. Have you considered whether you want to keep the Westchester estate or any particular properties?" Miranda closed her eyes briefly, visions of the mansion's winding corridors and manicured lawns flooding her mind. "The estate holds too many memories, both good and painful. I'm not sure yet, but I want to secure my financial independence. I might not want to stay there, but I won't let him easily claim it all." Delgado jotted notes with efficient calm. "We can approach it as a negotiation. Sometimes, in these cases, the property is sold and the proceeds are split. Or we can request you retain the residence as part of the settlement. We'll see how Travis and his counsel respond." He looked up, his gaze compassionate. "I know this is difficult. Are you sure you want to do this?" Her throat tightened. "Yes, he's fathering another woman's child. I can't live under that burden, never knowing if he'll betray me again." With that, Delgado finished compiling the documentation. Miranda practiced her signature with trembling determination, scrawling her name where Delgado pointed. He promised to file the papers with the court immediately, initiating the legal process that might culminate in a contested or uncontested divorce, depending on Travis's reaction. Leaving the firm, Miranda stepped onto the bustling Manhattan sidewalk. She paused, letting the swirl of pedestrians and honking taxis wash over her. A myriad of emotions coursed through her: heartbreak, anger, an odd sense of relief at having taken a definitive step. The marriage she once cherished would soon become a legal battleground. She dreaded the coming months, the possible tabloids, the stares of acquaintances. Yet, a whisper of liberation accompanied the sorrow as she was no longer trapped in uncertainty. That evening, at the mansion, she found Travis in the foyer. His eyes widened in dread as she approached, folder in hand. She pressed the divorce papers against his chest, voice shaking with a mixture of rage and finality. "You've destroyed the trust we had. I've filed for divorce." His face crumpled. He sank to his knees on the gleaming marble floor, tears brimming. "Miranda, please, don't do this. I'll do anything to keep you." He clutched at her hand, but she pulled away, tears silently streaming down her cheeks. Her heart hammered at the sight of her proud husband, humbled in such a desperate posture. Yet the weight of his betrayal hung between them. She turned and fled upstairs, leaving Travis kneeling alone, consumed by regret, his wealth and power, unable to shield him from the ruin he brought on himself. Divorce proceedings seldom remain neatly confined to legal documents, especially within influential circles. In the weeks that followed Miranda's official filing, the Rutherford name became the subject of hushed gossip at every Westchester soiree. Old family friends approached Miranda with guarded sympathy or morbid curiosity. She deflected their prying queries, focusing instead on finalizing her exit strategy. Meanwhile, Travis vacated the Westchester estate upon Miranda's request. He took residence in a penthouse suite in Manhattan, ironically the very place he'd once retreated to for late business nights. The hush-money negotiations with Elena commenced, too, under the watchful eyes of both Miranda's and Travis's lawyers. If the child was indeed Travis's, monthly support would soon follow. Through it all, Travis bombarded Miranda with messages of remorse and pleas for reconciliation. Flowers arrived daily at the mansion, bearing heartfelt apologies in handwritten notes. She tossed them into the trash, unread. He called incessantly, leaving voicemails, some tearful, some nearly begging. The staff noted his presence at the gate, turned away at Miranda's instructions. Yet, Miranda's heartbreak was far from healed. Some nights she woke in tears, memories of their once loving marriage strangling her chest. But each recollection of Elena's smug face, each thought of the unborn child, reminded her that returning to Travis meant binding herself to that betrayal. She clung to her choice, determined to follow through. Elena, meanwhile, saw advantage in the swirling scandal. Through her own lawyers, she demanded comfortable accommodations for her pregnancy, top-tier obstetric care, living expenses, and a vow of future support. She flaunted her growing belly in public, ensuring paparazzi occasionally snapped photos. As a result, tabloid headlines erupted. Millionaire Travis Rutherford's love child confirmed wife files for divorce. One morning, a letter from Elena's attorney arrived at the mansion, requesting a meeting to discuss co-parenting logistics and financial obligations. Miranda felt her stomach churn, even though such matters now lay outside her personal responsibility. She forwarded the letter to Delgado, wanting to keep the mistress's drama at arm's length. She'd had enough heartbreak without delving deeper into the specifics of Travis's paternal duties. But the final blow came unexpectedly. Elena reached out directly, sending a text to Miranda. "I know you're leaving him, but we should talk. This child binds us together whether we like it or not." The gall of that message rattled Miranda. She wanted nothing to do with Elena. The idea of coexisting or collaborating with the very woman who had upended her marriage was anathema. She deleted the message, refusing to respond. While the outside world thrived on sensational rumors, Miranda prepared for the next stage of her life. She transferred some funds into an account solely under her name, began searching for a more modest home, and quietly interviewed real estate agents to handle the potential sale of the Westchester mansion. The future loomed uncertain, but she refused to be manipulated further. She had set the divorce in motion, and soon a judge would oversee the final unraveling of what she once considered an unbreakable bond. The heartbreak remained, but so did her resolve to reclaim her life from the ashes of Travis Rutherford's betrayal. Under a slate-grey sky, the Westchester County Courthouse stood like a fortress of finality. Miranda arrived early, a storm of emotions roiling in her chest. Delgado accompanied her, exuding calm professionalism, while she herself felt a swirl of dread and liberation. This was the day the court would address her divorce petition, at least in its preliminary stage. Travis arrived moments later, appearing haggard, accompanied by his own attorney. Their eyes met across the stone steps, Miranda's gaze cold, Travis's filled with desperate longing. They entered the courtroom, past the curious stares of bystanders who sensed a high-profile meltdown in progress. Inside, the hearing proceeded in a subdued flurry of legal formality. Delgado outlined the grounds for divorce, Travis's admitted infidelity, the confirmed paternity of an extramarital child. Travis's lawyer attempted to soften the blow, emphasizing his client's remorse and readiness to fulfill spousal support obligations. Yet the presiding judge, a stern-faced woman with piercing eyes, showed little patience for any theatrics. She scheduled a second hearing for final arrangements, giving both sides time to finalize a property settlement. For now, the marriage was effectively in the final countdown. As they exited the courtroom, Elena Montgomery stood in the corridor, an unwelcome surprise. She was more visibly pregnant now, her designer dress hugging the growing bump. Travis tensed at the sight of her. Miranda bristled, anger flaring at Elena's nerve. Delgado placed a cautionary hand on Miranda's arm, but Elena approached anyway, lips curving into a sly smile. "Travis," she said, voice breathy with mock concern. "I was in a separate hearing room discussing child support. I guess we're done now, so I wanted to say hi." She cast a glance at Miranda, who stood taut with fury. "Miranda, you look well. We really should talk about the baby's future." Miranda's jaw tightened. "There is no we here," she hissed. "Your choices brought you and Travis together. You can handle the consequences without involving me." A flicker of scorn crossed Elena's face. "I understand you're divorcing him, but eventually, if this child's part of his life, you might cross paths." She stroked her belly, a theatrical gesture. Travis raised a trembling hand, voice cracking. "Please, can we not do this here?" Elena's eyes gleamed. "I only wanted to remind you both that I'm having your child, Travis. You can't shut me out forever." Miranda felt Delgado steer her away, whispering, "Don't engage." She took a shaky breath, ignoring Elena's parting gaze. She marched out of the courthouse with Delgado at her side, Travis stumbling after them, stammering fruitless apologies. Outside, a smattering of paparazzi clamored for photos, cameras flashing. Miranda realized that any chance at a quiet resolution was gone. Travis reached for her, dropping to his knees on the courthouse steps in front of the jostling crowd. "Miranda, I beg you," he cried, eyes filled with tears, "don't finalize this divorce." "I'll do anything, I love you." She stood, tears welling, heartbreak etched on her features. But her resolve prevailed. No grand public display could erase the betrayal, the pregnancy he caused with another woman, or the life she had lost. She turned away, allowing Delgado to guide her to a waiting car. The paparazzi's shutter clicks provided a cacophonous soundtrack to the final chapter of a love story that once promised forever and ended in the harsh light of scandal. Several months later, the final decree of divorce was granted, formalizing what had become inevitable after the paternity results. Miranda Rutherford, still adjusting to her maiden name, Miranda Caldwell, in private had found a quaint townhouse in Beacon, a riverside town about an hour north of the city. It was smaller, cozier, and lacked the extravagances of Westchester's grand estate, yet it exuded warmth she desperately needed. She brought few remnants of her old life, a beloved antique desk, her favorite armchair, and cherished books. The rest, including the Westchester mansion, was sold. Public curiosity over the Rutherford scandal had waned, replaced by fresher tabloid fodder. Travis's empire continued, albeit with a tarnished reputation. Elena gave birth to a baby boy, publicly confirmed as Travis's, though rumors hinted the affair had soured into sporadic contact for the sake of child support. Sitting one crisp morning at her townhouse's small kitchen table, Miranda sipped chamomile tea, gazing out at the Hudson River's shimmering surface. She felt an unexpected calm loneliness, yes, but also newfound independence. She had chosen to reclaim her life, refusing to let heartbreak define her future. A gentle knock sounded at the door. Peering through the window, she recognized Celeste Harrington's bright grin. Since the scandal, Celeste had become one of her steadfast supporters. Miranda opened the door, ushering her friend inside. "Darling, how are you faring?" Celeste asked, hugging her warmly. She carried a bouquet of wildflowers. "Thought these might brighten your day." Miranda smiled, placing them in a vase. "Thank you. I'm adjusting. Some days are harder than others, but I'm coping." They chatted over steaming mugs of tea about Miranda's new community, her potential plans to set up a local literacy foundation, and the quiet joys of living away from prying eyes. Celeste observed her friend with concern. "Have you heard from Travis?" Miranda shook her head, shoulders tight. "He texts once in a while, apologizing or updating me about the child. I haven't responded. I just can't. Not yet." Celeste nodded sympathetically. "You're under no obligation. Focus on you. The healing is a slow process, but I see glimpses of the vibrant, passionate Miranda the first once knew in college." Miranda felt tears prickle. The betrayal scarred her deeply, yet she sensed growth within that pain. She was forging a future unencumbered by Travis's shadows. Though the memories of love lost would always linger, she discovered a fresh sense of self-worth. She was more than a scorned wife or a wealthy socialite. She was a survivor, determined to shape her own destiny. After Celeste departed, Miranda stood by the window, watching sunlight dance on the water. She inhaled the crisp autumn air. For the first time in months, a tentative smile graced her lips. She was free from secrets, from a marriage built on illusions, from a cycle of heartbreak. Tomorrow might bring fresh challenges, but she had faced her darkest hours and found the strength to walk away. And that, she realized, was the beginning of a new dawn. Miranda's story lays bare the painful truth that even the grandest fortune can't safeguard a marriage from betrayal. Once poised as the devoted wife of a successful magnate, she now stands on her own proof that resilience can emerge from life's deepest wounds. The mistress's bombshell pregnancy forced Miranda to confront her husband's infidelity and ultimately led her to rebuild from the ashes of a shattered fairy tale. Through heartbreak, legal battles, and public scrutiny, Miranda rediscovered the power of her own voice and the resolve to protect her future. Thank you for following Miranda's emotional journey. If her story resonated with you, please like this video to show your support, share it with friends who appreciate poignant, real-life drama, and subscribe to our channel for more captivating stories. Your engagement encourages us to continue delivering stories about resilience, love, and life's unexpected turns. Stay tuned for our next heartfelt saga.